Okay, here we have a screen on the screen door. Now, on a lot of screen doors, you cannot remove the screen on doors like this, especially if it's like a back patio door to like a garage or to a patio. Sometimes the screens are built in and you can't remove the screen unless you actually pull out the rubber on the screen, which I've done, and clean the screen that way. So what you would do is you would clean the screen, pull out the rubber, and then clean the glass, bring the screen back down, pop the rubber back in. Now that's a total pain, but sometimes you have to do that in order to clean the window and the screen. If you do decide to pull out the rubber, you want to leave the rubber at the top in. So you would use your washing wand, clean the screen, pull out the rubber around the screen to here, leave it across the top. Then you can lift up the screening, clean the window, detail it, everything. You're gonna have to hold it with one hand and do everything else with the other hand, so it's a little more challenging. Bring the screen back down, get your screen roller tool and roll the rubber back in. Now that's one method. On this particular window, I can actually take out the top pane from the back side, so I would clean the screen first, then I would take the pane out and then clean the window and pop it back in the back side. That would be the best approach for this, but you do not want to take the rubber completely off. And in this particular window, it actually has a screen that I could take out, but because I can take out the back pane and I have to take out the back pane to get out this screen, I'm just going to go ahead and clean this screen like it is, then pop the pane out, clean that, put that back in, because then I don't have to actually pop the screen out as well. And looking at the screen, I've looked at it from the inside already, it's actually a pretty tight screen, so why pop it out if I can just clean it right here, right now? I'm going to have to pop out the glass anyway, either way. Okay, now that I've popped the screens off, I'm going to go around and collect up all the screens for the perspective sides of the house. I'm in the front currently. In this house, there are not a lot of screens. Even though this is a 21 windows on this house, there's very few screens. So I'm going to place my screens in piles. I'm going to carry them to my cleaning area, which is usually in the driveway off to the one side so that they can pull their car out. And I'm gonna place my screens in a certain order, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. So what you would do is place all the screens from the front of the house right in front of you. So that's going to be these big screens here. These screens I'm going to call the left side of the house, so I'm going to place those on the left. Now the other thing you want to do, if you can, if you have a lot of screens for each side of the house, then you want to try to remember which ones were from the top story and which ones were from the bottom story. And so, you know, two of these screens are actually from the top story. I would put them like that. So this is the left side of the house bottom, left side of the house top. Then the front, well, I only have top story screens in the front, so those would go there. But if I had bottom ones, then these would be the bottom ones, and then the top ones would go up there. Now I'm going to go collect the right side screens. They're going to go here. There are no bottom ones, so I'm just going to put them here. But once again, if I had bottom ones, they would go here, and my top ones would go there. And then the very back of the house would go over to the right side of the right screens. I'm going to go get those screens now, and then I will show you the full setup here in a second. Okay, so I went ahead and got all the screens. This is all the screens for this house. I went ahead and just kind of laid them out as to how you would lay out the screens. The left side, left top, front top, right side bottom, right side top, back side, and then if there was a back side top. That's how you would lay out the screens. You want to follow this pattern every single time so that you always know where your screens belong and then when you're done cleaning these screens, you can then take them, I can take those to the left side, and I can place those ones near the bottom ones, and I can place those underneath where I think the top ones go, and then do that to all the sides. Now, if you have a really big house with a lot of screens, you're not always going to maybe get the screens exactly with the right window, but at least you'll have them on the correct side of the house, and you'll be able to quickly figure out which screen goes where. Okay, so we've talked about putting the screens back where they belong on which side of the house. Now, some window cleaners will take a marker and actually write on the side of the screen, left side of the house, dining room. They'll abbreviate it. They'll put bedroom, bedroom 1, bathroom. I don't recommend doing this. First of all, you're writing on your customers' screens, and unless you got permission to do that, I wouldn't do that. I don't think they would appreciate that. Even though it might make your job easier, it's not a good idea without asking their permission. Now, if they're fine with that, go ahead and do it if that's what you want to do. I know as a window cleaner, I've come across homes where window cleaners have written that stuff on there, and then the screens aren't even in the right spot. Okay, so I think one of the last things I want to talk about with popping out screens is just some of the problems you encounter. As you can see on this screen here, this is broken. These are just made of plastic, these little corner pieces. And as they get old, you can tell this is good and old. You can see it's yellowing. Originally it would have been bright white like the frame. So as they get old, these will crack. And then you can also see that the rubber's pulling out here, the screen is ripping here, this is getting brittle. So these are things you want to be careful about when you're pulling out the screen. If the screen's really brittle and you're having a tough time pushing on the screen, I mean, you could easily push through this and rip this. So you want to be careful. You want to look for brittle screens, and when you see that they're brittle, take extra care how you pull out the screens, that you don't rip the screening. And then if you notice that these are looking dry rot before you toss them down from the second story, make sure you really toss the screen correctly and into a soft grassy spot. That would be preferable. In this instance, it landed out here on the driveway. It was actually already cracked before I tossed it down, but it could crack hitting the driveway when it's brittle like this. You can also see here that the screen is slightly bent from being pulled out wrong in the past. If you see these kind of things, you want to mention this to the homeowner. You want to let them know that the screens were already bent. You want to mention that it's getting dry rot and that they might want to think about replacing the screening. You want to also talk about the cracked corners of the plastic here, and talk about that as well, and let them know that these are just going to keep cracking and they're just going to get worse and worse, and that right now it looks like it's time to replace the screens. Now, if you want to do that yourself, that's up to you. I don't recommend going into the screen repair business. I would let someone who specializes in that only to do that. Also, on this side of the screen, you've got the little clips, and these are the little tension clips that when you pop the screen in, it helps the screen stay nice and tight up there in the window frame. Now, sometimes these things will pop up like this, and they'll be popped like that from the last person who popped in the screen. They didn't take their time, they were in a hurry, and it popped out like that and stuck in the window. And so when that happens, it can be really difficult to pop the screen out of the window, especially from the inside of the house. And oftentimes when a clip is like this, you're probably going to have to pull the screen from the outside, which is a pain if it's on the second story, because that means you're going to have to get out the ladder, go up, pop out the screen. I would wait till you got to that side of the house if that's the case. I wouldn't do that when you're about to wash all the screens up at the very beginning of your process. I wouldn't go and get the ladder out, go to that side of the house, pop out the screen. I would just wait till you got to that side of the house and we're washing the windows, and you can wash that one individual screen at that time. But if it is on the bottom story, I would go ahead, I would grab my paint key, and I would go and pop the screen out